you point out in your preview for South Carolina, 73 career starts returned for the Gamecocks on the offensive line. You lose Donnell Stanley, but Hank Mano should fill in at that center position, and he was a guy that I think fans probably remember was an Under Armour All-American guy, was a highly touted recruit. So if he can pan out and you get Dylan Wanham back and a bunch of the others, that should be one of the strengths for sure, like you mentioned. And again, I think a Gamecocks offense that maybe sort of looking to find itself early on, because you do have to replace Brian Edwards. Everybody's excited about Marshawn Lloyd, but he is a true freshman running back. That offensive line should at least take some pressure off of Ryan Olinsky and what they're trying to do. Another thing I wanted to mention as far as statistics, and again, another shout out to you. I believe you said South Carolina, you had them projected last season to average around 392.1 or 362.1 yards per game, and you were off by, I think, 0.01 as far as the yardage average. So that is pretty solid. That's a pretty good job, I have to say. So kudos to you for that as well. But sticking with the offense, I want to start with the quarterbacks. Again, that's sort of where it all begins for every single team in college football. I just feel like if you have elite quarterback play, no matter the team you have around you, you're going to have a chance. You're going to have a chance. And South Carolina returns Ryan Olinsky. You mentioned Jake Bentley out for the season last year. Olinsky takes over. I think it's very interesting, though, Phil, because a lot of the different magazines I've read, a lot of the different experts I've heard talking about Ryan Linski, I feel like it's very much a mixed bag, and I've been sort of surprised by that. I think there are some people that are high on him that think the ceiling is very high for him, and there's some people that I've read that really question if he is the long-term answer for South Carolina. They talk about Colin Hill maybe coming in, the Colorado State transfer. He's been in the Mike Bobo offense for 4+ years. Could he possibly battle for the job or take the job? And then Luke Doty, the highly touted freshman, who I think long-term, I'll say maybe he is a better play for South Carolina just because he is a true dual threat, and it kind of gives you those Connor Shaw feelings, if you will, which Gamecock fans are still very reverent of him. But just talk about Ryan Olinsky, the quarterback position, and I guess what you're expecting from him in that position as a whole for South Carolina.
I think we're going to have a lot better Ryan Olinsky. Let's face it, he wasn't the starter, wasn't taking the first team reps in the spring, and then sort of thrown into the fire. And even Coach Muschamp said that as a staff, he felt they didn't do enough to help him out. They threw the ball 38 more times than anyone in the SEC last year, so they need to get a better balanced run game. And when you're dropping back to pass that much, as Olinsky did last year, as a true freshman, reading defenses for the first time, it's a tough situation to be in, but you got to like the guy's size. He's 6'3", he's 225, he's intelligent, prepares well, and I think Olinsky, should he be able to hold off Colin Hill and Luke Doty, which I think he will, should have a vastly improved season this year. And we've seen that from a lot of quarterbacks, going from the freshman season to the sophomore season, that the numbers just dramatically improve, especially in the ratio area of touchdowns to interceptions.
For sure. So I want to move to the running back position because, again, Phil, you made it very clear. You've had a lot of conversations with Will Muschamp. How does he speak on Marshawn Lloyd? Because I think that's a guy that, listen, maybe they won't make the announcement officially, but we had Marshawn on the show a few months ago, and, he mentioned one of the reasons he was coming to South Carolina, and one of the reasons he chose South Carolina was playing time. And he was expecting to play, and he was a guy that was looking to make an impact early. And I fully expect Marshawn Lloyd to be the starting running back and to be one of the guys that the offense truly revolves around. Obviously one of the highest touted recruits, and last year's cycle chose South Carolina over a bunch of other schools. The highest rated running back prospect since Marcus Lattimore. So that's pretty elite company. But just talk about Marshawn Lloyd, what you expect from him. Again, Gamecocks lose 3 senior running backs. So looking on paper, it may look like that position might take a step back, but I actually think they'll be better with Marshawn Lloyd being the bell cow running back, Kevin Harris, the 2 guy. You have the JUCO transfer. Deshaun Fenwick's done some nice things. I think the running back group could really surprise some people led by Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, and I think when you go with Lloyd, he's a guy that's a one-cut runner, and he's got top-end speed. So he can finish off the runs, which I think is great. He's got good lateral change of direction, and he also catches the ball well out of the backfield, and he's very competitive. So I think all those things do hold up. And, yeah, I do think he's going to top last year's leading rushers, 672 yards rushing. So I think that's going to be a positive position and help them balance out that offense a little bit more than it was last year when they struggled a little bit in the run game.
Now, a lot of those numbers, Phil, I feel like are going to come down to the Mike Bobo scheme. and I know South Carolina, similar to Georgia, similar to others, is one of those teams. It's going to be interesting just because you lose most of spring practice. We might have a condensed fall practice, so it's not as much time to implement Mike Bobo's scheme and his system. But you talk about the offense and Phil's forecast, your forecast. You look for improved numbers offensively. And you're a guy, obviously, again, you've dove in the numbers. You've done this for a while. So you broke down Mike Bobo's Colorado State teams. You broke down his Georgia offenses. What do you expect from a Mike Bobo offense at South Carolina? Because I think the one concern that I have, and I know a lot of other South Carolina fans have, is if you try to run the Georgia scheme, the Georgia style offense, you don't have Georgia's players. There isn't a Todd Gurley. I'm not sure you have an Aaron Murray, Matt Stafford, whatever. So what do you expect from Mike Bobo's offense? I mean, do you expect South Carolina to go to a pro-style I formation? I think they will be a run-heavy offense, but do you expect them to go fully Georgia mode, I guess? Or what are you looking for from Mike Bobo's scheme in Columbia?
I do think we're going to see more snaps under center, no doubt about it. More I formation snaps. Now, I'll say this. You go back to Colorado State and the offense they ran. While they lined up in that formation a lot of times, they still threw the ball a lot. I mean, last year they threw the ball 446 times, only ran it 395, so actually threw the ball more than they ran it. But I do think that that's the goal, would be the goal coming in. I mean, anytime you can have the run game, and with that offensive line, I'd like to line up and run the football better. If that's the case and you can do it, then it should be a positive for South Carolina. But as all coaches are, and you mentioned the fact didn't have spring, you got to be adaptable. You got to adjust the team to fit the schemes of the players that are the starters. Colin Hill would be interesting if he enters in the mix because he has played in that Colorado State offense for years and did well when he was out there.